everybody, and welcome back to the Higher Ground Project. This is the podcast that gives job seekers a real voice in a job market that often feels like it's speaking in riddles. I am David Peterson.
And I'm Doug Kimball. And if you've ever been ghosted by a hiring manager, gotten a rejection email that could have been written by what sounds like an unsympathetic toaster, or found yourself rage scrolling LinkedIn, you're in the right place.
Now, every week we sit down with job seekers that are in the thick of it. Now, this is not a highlight reel. It's literally the real reel. So these are stories of layoffs, pivots, personal branding, and the messy middle between gigs.
And we really appreciate the fact we're sponsored by Think Strategic Alliances. They're a great company that's really focusing on helping fractional marketers build their visibility and find new opportunities. Every guest on the show is featured on our portfolio page, and make sure you check that out because you might find your next hire there.
And today's guest brings candor, insight, and just the right amount of chaos. He's a former startup CMO and a VP of communications who's lived through the full circus of the modern job search.
Layoffs, been there. Ghosting, got that done. Dad jokes and sharp rants on LinkedIn. Yeah, I like that. Please welcome Jake Ellenburg.
Now, Jake's career spans more than a decade of high-impact marketing and brand leadership. He's driven millions of downloads, landed national media without a budget, and helped companies go from underdog to industry disruptor.
And his superpower, one of my favorites, storytelling that makes a difference and connects. He doesn't just sell products, he crafts movements. And when he becomes a building attention from scratch, Jake's your guy.
But like many talented professionals, Jake found himself on the other side of a layoff, suddenly outside the system he'd helped build.
And since then, like many of us, he's been navigating the job market with humor, grit, and a lot of hard-earned perspective.
Jake, welcome to the Higher Ground Project.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, ready to stir the pot, but hopefully with a little bit of love, of course.
Gotta like it. And we always start this off with a segment we call Clear the Pipes. So it's time for catharsis. It's time to vent. No filters, no fluff. So, Jake, what's been the most difficult, brutal part of your job search so far?
For me, it's got to be, my role being eliminated after a decade in the game, right? But what came after that was really probably the worst part. It was kind of like pouring yourself into applications, filling those out, doing as much as you can, connecting with everybody, and then just being ghosted or getting hit with some of the most blandest AI-written rejection letters I've ever seen. It just feels like the whole thing. There's a barrier to entry that for some reason even people like myself with a decade of experience at a high level just can't get in.
That AI rejection email fatigue is so real. I know that I'm feeling it, and it feels like you put so much energy into putting together a robust application, and God forbid you're using Workday or someplace where you have to take an additional 30 minutes to manually put in your experience, and then you just get this automatic rejection based on nothing that you can see, right? Exactly. So it's just too bad. See you later.
Exactly. There was days where I was applying to 20, 30, 40 plus jobs a day, just spending 8 hours filling those out. And, meanwhile, it turned out memes on LinkedIn were the thing that was going to get me more engagement than my resume.
It's crazy. It says a lot about the system, unfortunately, but it also reinforces, I think in a weirdly positive way, where people are finding real connections and using the LinkedIn and other things as a community to do that. It's neat, but it is unfortunate.
Yeah, the whole thing really starts to feel like satire. I mean, I know I half joked with you guys the other day about how if I had to title my job search, it'd be Do Not Hire Jake, The Redemption Arc, because I launched my website, Do Not Hire Jake, or LinkedIn Rants and Shower Beers. But, it's survival with a side of sarcasm out here right now.
Yeah, and it really puts us job seekers in a spot where we have to take a blind rejection and somehow try to learn from that, right? And it's so hard to extract those lessons when you have no idea why you've been rejected. Sometimes you see a job that's been posted 3, 4, or 5 times. Well, what did I not have that none of the candidates had that now you're reposting again? So it's just this kind of blind game that we're all in where we're just trying to figure out how to appease this ephemeral presence whose directions we truly just don't understand.
The AI gods.
Right, exactly. Now, let's just pivot a little bit. Let's talk about your real edge. So what would you say your marketing superpower is?
Yeah, and I struggle with this one because like I do consider this to be kind of a buzzword, and I'm not a big buzzword guy, but like I've always thought storytelling is really what has always set me apart, and I know a lot of marketers feel that, but then like for me, I feel like the proof is kind of in the pudding at least. I've built viral brands, landed press with zero ad spend or zero spend on the PR side, just from connections and crafting good stories. I've rebranded companies mid-crisis. And, to be able to do that, you just have to know how to craft a message that doesn't just inform, but hits. And so there's a lot of people out there claiming that storytelling is their power, and it's really just ChatGPT. You have to drive trust, traffic, and traction. And if your storytelling can do that, then you're in a good spot. And I feel like, for the past 10 years plus, that's been my ace in the hole, is just telling and crafting amazing stories about a plethora of different startups. And big companies.
It's often oversimplified. I mean, I'm a storyteller as a product marketer, and it is amazing that it's not always understood how powerful the difference between just communicating, which is saying things, and actually moving people from, hey, I might be interested, to being engaged. So tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think anyone can just list features. Anyone can talk about the highlights that a company does, right? And I feel, like I, joked about ChatGPT, like a lot of people are just putting in like company bios and asking it to help crank out some ads, right? I think the big thing is making audiences actually feel something and act on it. A lot of people know when they see an ad or, maybe a story, they may not immediately respond right then. Some people, I think it takes, multiple times to come to your website, see your messaging, really get a feel for who you are as a company. And so I think a lot of people are doing an okay crafting kind of that beginner message, but they're not driving them home. They're not getting them to actually be like, whoa, this is a company I want to work with, work for, whatever, invest in, the whole nine.
100%. And, I think the term storyteller, it's really interesting that you bring that term up, because I feel like this is one of those terms, kind of like PTSD, that has just been thrown around so much that people have, it's like lost value. So like there are people who like actually suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not just because you got the wrong salad at lunch, right? And, the same thing with being a storyteller. There are a million people on LinkedIn who claim to be a storyteller, but the only way that you can really prove it is by having this type of conversation with a recruiter, with a hiring manager. It's hard to like list on your resume, or maybe impossible to list on your resume, like what your approach is to storytelling. That doesn't usually get embedded within a resume. That's usually for a conversation. And so it's so frustrating to see like real storytellers who are having a problem getting a foot in the door, when if people just had the conversation with you, they would see that you're a true storyteller here, and maybe not like a million people on LinkedIn.
100%. And communications and marketing are just one of those things that I feel like it's in that weird realm where people kind of just think they can do it. We all talk. We're talking right now. Look at us. We must know communications, right? Well, it's the same thing. Like, my little cousin can throw a football. So can Tom Brady. They're not the same, like. And so, like, yeah, we all can communicate. We all can do some form of marketing. We can make TikTok, stuff like that, right? But at the end of the day, it's about finding your Tom Brady, the real one that can actually do it and get you that Super Bowl ring, right? And I'm not calling myself Tom Brady. I think other people are saying that, right?
Well, I like that. It makes a big difference, because there's a reason there are people who are specialists in fields. I mean, I can go tinker on my automobile, my car, and make some, improve some things. There's some things I will destroy. I'll bring it to a specialist to go fix that. Anybody can write words down, to your point. Anybody can create a message. But a message that answers the whole so what, why, and who cares, how do you move somebody along, that's different.
100%.
All right, cool. So appreciate the storytelling perspective. Let's switch gears again. So if you could wave a wand and just change one thing about what's going on in today's hiring process, trying to job search process, all those things, what would you change?
I mean, I think I'd go back to that communication part, right? Like, I think some of these companies, we've got to start holding them more accountable for how they communicate to people out here looking for jobs. It's, if a candidate invests hours into your process, I just feel like they should be owed something, whether it's legitimate feedback, a conversation, or an actual human response. And I get that these people are getting hundreds, if not thousands, of applications a day sometimes for some of these roles. And so asking them to do that kind of it sounds like a huge lift, but like, it's just, to me, it hurts their brand equity. There's companies now that I will refuse to buy from just because of how I've felt going through this entire hiring process. The black hole, if you will, it's damaging, and I think it's costing companies some serious brand equity.
I could not agree more. And actually, I had an interesting sort of experience with ghosting recently, where I got ghosted by a recruiter. I reached out to the CEO of the company, and I got this like gorgeous, lovely apology note that said, "This is not who we are as a company. I'm so sorry you had this. We're going to get an answer for you either way in the next 24 hours." So there are companies out there. And by the way, when I got that email, I said, "Oh, well, now I really want to work for you."
Yeah.
Like, if this is the response that you're giving me, which is just full of empathy and compassion, if a CEO of a Fortune 500 company can take 10 minutes out of his day to write a really nice email back to a complete stranger, I think it's not a heavy lift for recruiters to say, "Hey, we just didn't feel like you had enough experience."
Yeah, no, 100%. I've actually gotten candid responses back like that, and I've appreciated it. Like, if I'm not a fit, I'm not a fit. But like, we are looking at other roles at this time, copy paste, is kind of crazy. And so, but in the meantime, I'm pivoting, building my brand, exploring some fractional work, and trying to redefine what success means for me, right? Not just based on what I consider to be a broken system. Because to your point, I don't even know if all these CEOs really even know this is happening, right? Like,
Sure.
a lot of CEOs aren't directly invested in the hiring process. Most of the time, that's an HR professional, someone they brought on. And there just seems to be a huge disconnect between HR professionals, recruiters, and then the actual higher ups at these companies and what they're wanting their company to look like for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are all really great points. And ghosting is something that we see, or a topic that we see brought up in this podcast over and over and over again, because it's just an epidemic at this point, right? And it's so frustrating to not only go through that firsthand, but to see the thousands and thousands of other people who are having the same experience. There has to be a solution here. So hopefully, throughout this whole job market craziness, there'll be some good precedent set moving forward. But right now, it's just so tough considering how flooded the job market is.
Sorry, I even had one recruiter tell me that ghosting was just a part of it, and we needed to get over it and kind of learn to live with it. And I told her straight up that it's that attitude to me that makes it acceptable. Like, it only becomes acceptable when we accept it, right?
100%.
And so it's just one of those things where, like, ghosting does not have to be a part of this process. We're allowing it to be a part of it.
100%. And the idea of, well, it's been like this forever, so get on board, that's not good enough, right? Like, we should, especially with the technology that we have with AI, there should be some streamlining of this process that doesn't put us in this position that we're in today. So thank you so much for bringing up those important topics. I think those would resonate with our audience and pretty much anybody who's watching this right now. And thank you, Jake, so much for showing up with honesty, humor, and a whole lot of truth today. Your story really needs to be heard. I think a lot of people are going to identify themselves with what you presented today.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you so much. If there's one thing I've learned from some of my postings on LinkedIn and other places is that we're not alone, right? It seems like when I post about like marketing metrics or maybe like the top things I've seen trend-wise, stuff like that, those posts don't do as well. But if I talk about the hiring market, it's going to get 1,000 likes. There's so many of us out there struggling with the exact same things. And so it's just one of those where I just want to, kind of let people know that you're not alone. From entry all the way up to 10-year veterans. We're all feeling this pain right now.
Yeah, and if you're like me and like money, hopefully you're nodding along. That's it. You take anything away from this. It's just you're not alone. I mean, I was listening to the example of the ghosting. I've got an example where I've got a person I've been connected to, recommended to say, hey, I reached out to the person twice on LinkedIn. Could you give me a reference? Can you help me in the opportunity? They've seen it. They've seen my post, my message to them. No response.
Yeah.
And to your point, is that acceptable? That's not a professional way to do it. So it's not just you. It's not just me. If you're getting ghosted, if you're getting left alone, don't worry about it. It's not you. The system is messed up. Your skills are still important, and your voice still matters out there.
And if you're looking for work and ready to speak up just like Jake, please be a guest on our show. DM me, DM Doug. We'll put all the contact info in the post. And we really want to hear your story. We've had some great episodes so far, and we would love to have you on.
Yeah, definitely. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, Think Strategic Alliances. They're helping connect great marketing minds like Jake to the companies that actually get it and don't want to play the ghosting game.
And please subscribe to our page if you haven't already. If you can share, like, engage with this post, it really helps us and our guests get their voice out there.
Yep. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.